Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This Matt.
This Jesse.
And today we are live from the State Firefighters and Fire Marshals Association in Frisco, Texas. And there might be a rare video with this.
Yeah.
Might be. And before we kick off the normal ball game and get going into our normal rant about how to find us, we'll also have some guests that we'll be introducing today. And they're also, they're unique in what they're doing to help us and what we're specifically going to talk about today. So before we kick the ball, what we do is if you ever have questions, concerns, comments, theories, interjections, litigation goes to Jesse, please reach out to ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com. You can always find us on YouTube at It Tastes Like Burning Cast. You can find us occasionally on some other social media sites and platforms. And what we're really interested in is Patreon supporters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you can find us on Patreon, and links and merch description in the bio. And with that said, I'm going to kick it over to our very first guest that we have on today's podcast. Mike, will you make an introduction?
Sure. I'm Mike Borrello. I own a YouTube channel called Heroes Next Door, where we travel the country and we look at fire, police, and EMS stations all over the country. The whole purpose of it is to highlight the good things that everybody does and to start to kind of turn the tables of recruitment and retention. So that's kind of what we do. Two big buckets are station cribs, station rigs. So if you're ever interested in having us come out and take a look at your station, send us an email at watchheroesnextdoor@gmail.com, and we'll get the process started.
Excellent. And part of what we're going to discuss today is social media. And this is why you are here today, is a collaboration between us. Now, granted, it is our podcast, but we are a fire department-based podcast, and your show is a fire, let me rephrase that, because I know you do public safety in general, but in our discussions, it was always based around the fire side. And you have a social media presence. We theoretically have a social media presence. Okay? But at the end of the day, it's one of these opportunities for both of us to be able to be like, okay, this organization can and does have legs when it does come to social media. But it is at a local level in the sense of our region and to a certain extent just the state. And we have been able to take full advantage of the social media. And I want to introduce our last guest, Chief James Longbrake. And part of this is that he's an instructor here for SFFMA, but he's also one of the guests on Mike's show also. Chief, go ahead.
I'm James Longbrake, like you said. Blessed to be here. Still not sure why I'm here.
Well, I told you it's eye candy.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm the fire chief over on the west side of Denton County, and I think part of the blessing is just the networking in the fire service. If I hadn't met Matt at a class, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet Mike and have the opportunity to use social media to benefit my fire department. And I know in the back of my mind, marketing and social media is a huge component of where we're going in the future. So as soon as he called me and said, "Hey, we have this opportunity," I'm like, I'm in. So
yeah, it really is. It's one of these things where, and don't get me wrong, you're going to start small. We started small, and we'll talk just briefly about trying to grow social media. But at the end of the day, it's really not just your social media. It's your ability to figure out how to tie it in with a whole bunch of other entities. And it's just straight marketing and the powers of marketing your organization. And I'm going to use a dirty word. It's also get you prepared for politics. Being able to market yourself. Market your organization. It is the politics for your organization. And as we continue through our discussion here, that's one thing that I kind of want to highlight is times are going to change. You will have different needs. You will have different wants. The organization might change over time as well. And there's nothing wrong with being able to use all the resources around you to actually start getting your community, at the end of the day, aware of what's going on with the organization. So Jesse, just real brief, how does social media really start for us, and where did we go with it, and then ultimately where are we at with it?
So we started out kind of just like everybody else. Had a Facebook, the department had a Facebook. It grew pretty well. We used YouTube for training purposes. So the department has a YouTube channel that we post training videos to. It's not used in any way as a recruitment tool or anything like that. It's more internal. And then we started reaching beyond, right? We started trying to figure out other ways that we could do stuff. And through help with partners and stuff like that, we had a production guy that offered to do a pro bono video that ended up, we use it for a lot of things. It plays in the movie theater before the movie.
Right.
It's on our Facebook. It's the tagged video. And it's really good content that gets lots of views and lots of people want to touch it. And I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit of Mike's stuff. Like,
yeah.
I know you started this channel several years ago, right? How long have you been?
We started in 2020, right in the midst of COVID.
Right in the midst of COVID, right? So it's a tough time to do anything.
Yeah.
I bet they didn't want to let you in the building very much.
No. The original business plan did not go as planned. But it was actually good because that's when we realized there are so many different social media platforms that are out there.
Right.
Yes, we are designated usually for YouTube, but we also had to reach out and say, okay, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's Snapchat, there's all these Facebook, there's all these other platforms that are out there that, we can reach out to the other individuals.
Right.
So do you use does the same content go across the board, or do you use one to feed to the other?
A little of both. Our major thing is the YouTube channel, so we can break up, the film, so you're not double or triple filming. But what we realized is when you do that, the other platforms feel a little jealous, to be honest with you. They're like, we want our own original content. So doing something smaller for the TikTok, it only takes you 60 seconds, right? To do a TikTok or a reel or something like that for Facebook. So it's okay to take that little second and have some original content. But what was cool about it is we use that original content for the smaller stuff to point it back to the bigger discussions that we have on YouTube.
Yeah. So you started this in COVID, and you've grown it. How did you grow? How was your growth rate?
Well, we're a little unusual because our growth rate was really good compared to what normal YouTube channels start. I think that is because we were in the midst of a pandemic and everybody was home and watching. And it's a topic that is a niche that really isn't on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're not doing the sensationalisms. We're not doing, the stunts and stuff like that. We're not giving away a ton of cash. Those kind of sensationalism things that are going on YouTube. We are actually just telling the stories of the real people, of the heroes next door. And that's, the firemen that, live next door to me that respond to fire calls. And half the people don't even know we're out there.
Right. I know that telling that story for your viewers, for the departments that you're interacting with, has an impact, right? It has a big impact. James is hoping for a huge impact, right? We're hoping for some impact. What have you seen kind of happen with departments you've been to, just as far as recruitment, retention, different things?
Yeah, so we've had a very positive response to the videos that we've been doing for different departments. Everything from, people would randomly call me up and say, hey, I had no idea that the fire company was even around the corner for me. I now volunteer. I'm in my second career. I didn't know I can do this. I've had younger kids reach out and say, I now want to be a fireman, and I want to participate in this. This is something that's really cool to me. And other departments we had a department up in New York that most recently had a film company from Hollywood reach out to them and say, we love your station so much, we want to film a movie there. So we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And they saw that, the Hollywood company saw that on my YouTube channel and says, that's pretty cool, let's go there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, oddly enough, that is, if you get the opportunity to have a movie filmed in your station, probably don't
Yeah,
do it. It's
don't.
really kind of a pain.
Don't do that.
It's actually pretty terrible.
We have experience with that. It was a disaster.
Yeah, it's much more fun and energetic to do YouTube or something like that as a means for exposure to the organization. So, James, you were all in when we called you and said, hey, do you want to do this, right?
Yes, sir. I see the value in just getting your name out there and take advantage of whatever resources are available. So it's about having the impact, like you said, within your community and within the fire service. So I'm focused solely on trying to make sure Ponder is taken care of day in, day out. But I see the value in the fire service and where we're going, and the struggles that we continue to have with recruitment and retention, and just the people next door don't know what we do. And across the country, there's different dynamics in every community. You guys are blessed in just the availability of people that are coming to you to volunteer. Mm-hmm. In my area, while we have a good cadre of people in our organization, it ebbs and flows with the times, and we go through struggles of having enough people to run calls day in, day out. So,
well, I think that ebb and flow is something that's everywhere. I don't think we're immune to it in Granbury at all. Like, it can happen, it will happen, it has happened in the past.
You're on a high right now.
We're on a high right now, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't always, it's not always going to be that high. So things like marketing your department and mm-hmm. keeping that constant contact with the public and keeping your citizenry involved in knowing what's going on just helps level out those ebb and flows, right? That's what we hope it does, right?
Yes,
right. Well, and a major, and it's a major decision for us collaborating with Mike and Heroes is that we're always recruiting. His channel's big enough that when he's going to pop up in an area, the algorithm, his channel carries weight, okay? And him highlighting the SFFMA convention just is strictly going to generate more views, just strictly because the man is here and he is going to post about SFFMA. I 100% am going to throw the drift net back out there off of this because I know that his channel is going to be heavy enough, and because of the algorithm, he's going to start being recommended a lot more in our general area. And because I recruit from such a large area, the views of my organization and letting people know that I do recruit hard and heavy, I don't really care where you're coming from, and it's going to increase my total applications over the next several months. And at the end of the day, I just need to grab a couple of them, and it makes a huge difference. And the kicker is that take this even to a bigger perspective. This is going to help Ponder and Chief Longbrake. This is going to help my local departments in Hood County because it's going to have people that have never been aware of the organizations in our county, but they're going to reach out with interest. And then I have the ability to send them to the other departments as well. So at the end of the day, there's a certain part of this where it is self-serving, it is self-centered. I think it's an incredibly beneficial thing, and I think it's an incredibly important story and a part of the fire service that you're showing because, again, through this, Ponder has a little bit of a bigger voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of take a little bit of bunny trail a little bit because you mentioned something about the reach. You know, if you get on YouTube or any of those things, you get a lot of fire departments that have started YouTube channels and they get 200-300 views on a regular basis, and usually it's the members and who's in their township, right? So they don't have that big reach because they're so focused on themselves already. They kind of remain in their own little sandbox. And the unique thing that Heroes Next Door has to offer those those stations are we're not tied down to our own little area. We're traveling the country. We want to hit all 50 states. We want to hit as many fire, police, and EMS stations as we can to give that bigger pond for everybody to look into.
Right.
So, if you put a video out or a podcast out, you're probably getting 200-300 views, where if we collaborate, and that's really what it's all about, is collaboration between Ponder and Granbury and all the other ones. If you collaborate with other YouTube channels, you get a bigger reach. So even if you went just to Ponder's and Ponder went to you now went from 300 to 600.
Right.
Well, fortunately, on Heroes Next Door, on a weekend, we're getting 30,000 views. So imagine going to a convention. How many go there on a weekend? You're going 10, 20,000 people at a convention. Well, we're getting that kind of viewership on a weekend.
Right. It's a huge factor that at the end of the day, particularly with just what we're working on here, and we've all talked to I have probably 10 people 1,000 times, but realistically, we're going to have hundreds of contacts over these few days here. And the fact of the matter is that channel gets released. And again, we're live streaming today. Okay, so you're going to have those contacts.
Absolutely.
And then you're going to be able to have the ability to take your own personal social media and link back to all of this. Okay, and you're going to get, I'm going to call it the cross-pollination off of that. But the truth is in our real benefit here is that we're going to get a slingshot off of your channel. And it's going to have a gigantic impact just strictly from the views perspective. And kind of the other part of this is you got to make sure you follow up with it. You can't just have a one and done event and assume that this is it. Like, oh, it's all fixed now. Because it's not. I mean, we've worked 3 years for this point. And it took 2 years before that to even get to the point of doing the podcast. And that's getting things, it always needs to be mentioned. People need to be able to find your department. I can't tell you how shocking it is to me when I'll look up a department on Google. There's no phone number, there's no address. They don't have a website. Their Facebook is spicy and interesting. Okay. There's no relative information to even how to reach out to these organizations. You've got to start somewhere. You've got to have at least one thing that's an anchor. Maybe you don't have the money to do a website. That's fine. Get a Facebook going. Have very specific information on there. Phone numbers, how to make contact, emails. At least you have something that's open 24/7 for the organization, and people can reference back to it. Because I can guarantee you off of this, we will see a spike in particularly our Facebook stuff. We will see a spike bouncing off of this. And it's just going to be people that are following the organization. And I think it'd be real interesting in 3-6 months and then like a year down the road, actually remember the conversation in this particular part and say, here's our current numbers when we did this live stream and this conference, and here we are today. The only difference is that we actually have a pretty large social media Facebook following already. So we're already getting a lot of just local awareness based strictly off of that.
One of the things, and it's a misconception, or a lot of people don't understand. And I have a friend of mine that had a pretty successful YouTube channel running for a long time, made his living strictly off of YouTube. When you're in these positions, you're not competing. Like, we're not competing. It Tastes Like Burning is not in competition with Heroes Next Door.
Correct.
Right.
This is purely one builds off the other, and you share audiences. So when you're at your department and you're posting and your neighboring departments reposting what you posted, and everybody's tagging off of each other and helping each other, it's just increasing that audience size, which is increasing response and viewership and recruitment, or whatever the goal is of what you're posting. It's not it's weird. And if you're a business person and you've had a business before, it's a different business model than anything else, right, Mike?
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head with that, with collaboration and sharing. One of the things that you want to do when you set up your network, if you do a YouTube channel, is make sure it's shareable and even editable to a certain extent. You want to let them share your content as much as possible. You have a watermark public safety is fairly new. I want to say 5-6 years ago, they're afraid of it. They weren't sure what to do with it. You know, they would get these reporters that would come up and, you know, they want to know the dirty stuff behind the scenes, but we're not all about that. We want to show what the reality is
Right.
of what's going on.
Yeah, I think for a lot of organizations, I think they're truly missing out on an opportunity, and it is way beyond just the public interaction and the public interfacing part of it. We use social media a lot, and it's not to send our message out, okay? Whether it be political or department mission, okay? But what we do is that we put foundational, I would say almost doctrine to the organization. They're fundamental chunks of the organization, very subtly out there to the community, and get people to start attaching themselves to the fundamental parts of the organization. And it's trying to create ownership. It's not just the informative part, but actually to get the community to start trying to associate with the foundation of the organization. And that's not just blasting your mission statement. It's not that.
Yeah, one of the coolest things, and I've noticed several departments do it, when they post stuff, they put, if Robinson is the one of these, your Robinson Volunteer Fire Department. That's how they kind of start every post, with, you know, saying that they're doing something or whatever. And to me, it was so impactful that it's like, yes, the community can see that department is part of the community. They belong there.
And all it took was a change of one simple word. It's not our department, it's your department.
Right.
Yeah, not our department. Yeah,
Your
Yeah.
department.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how impactful that was to me, not even living there, and I just, you know, noticed that that's how they did it.
Yeah, putting the time, energy, and effort into just the subtle nuance. It seems weird, but it's one of those things where you have to actually invest quite a bit of out of the gate. Okay, it's not a continuous thing, because once you're kind of in the habit of it, you're in the habit, and it's going to happen from there.
You develop good habits, good things happen.
Right.
And they stay consistent.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be every single post either. It can be just splashed in there. And at the end of the day, me and Jesse, we talk to a lot of people, we see a lot of people, and I'm really surprised that there's still organizations so hesitant on social media. And one thing talk about Fort Worth and the.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to go back and just say, most of us that are our age, from coming into the fire service, right?
Don't you dare say my space. Are you going to say
So,
my space?
so
Not even that.
that we've been here a little while, right?
Floppy disk?
Could be. But social media was like, don't be on that. If you ever want to be a fire chief somewhere, don't even have a Facebook. Don't have a MySpace or whatever the case may be. It started with MySpace, right? But this stigma that you're going to accidentally post something that's going to be career ruining or get you fired or whatever. And those things happen, right? Because people do stupid stuff. And we're people, right? But being smart about it and all that and kind of being above board and you can still have fun with it. And that goes to what Matt was talking about. One of the turning points for me to realize that, hey, we're doing this wrong is Fort Worth Police Department had a recruiting video here a couple years ago. And I don't know if anybody saw it, but I mean, they were joking around. It was fun. They were handing donuts out. Like it was this hilarious video, and I was like, that's the answer. That's what we need to be doing. It was engaging. It brought somebody in. It wasn't just some guy, Fort Worth would love you to be here on our department. You know, it had some entertainment value to it.
Right, and talking about the entertainment, I think that is a very valuable asset, is entertainment. Fortunately, Heroes Next Door has gotten to the point to where we've been told we've kind of replaced the Saturday morning cartoons for a lot of families because they don't have that content anymore that we grew up in, kind of taking our age back. So having a reliable source for the younger generations and even families to reach out and watch TV, because let's be honest, how many of us actually have cable television anymore? Mm-hmm. We're streaming everything. So if they have a channel that is, Granbury channel that they're going to watch maybe every Saturday morning to get some of their information, that's a good thing to do. But you have to have it entertaining, not just always informative. Informative is good, but entertainment makes it last.
Right, because even if you get somebody to click on it, whatever it is, if there's not either some important information that's life-altering, right? So we're communicating that there's a wildfire or something, then people need to evacuate, where that is engaging enough that they're going to want to do. If it's just normal, everyday stuff and you're highlighting something, it's got to have that kind of something to keep them on there, right? If it's weird and it's awkward and they're going to leave. They're not going to pay attention.
The reels and the Facebook reels and the TikTok and all that, the attention span of most people to get them and to get them engaged is about 5 to 7 seconds now.
Yes.
So if you don't grab them in those first 5 to 7 seconds and it's not something they're looking for, they've moved on to the next thing.
Yeah,
It's the world we live
it's
in.
getting that hook, it's getting that thumbnail and all those kind of things right. And there is two different aspects to sharing that information. Like we're talking about is that entertainment value, but also that informative. And the terminology that we use is you have different buckets. Just because I say I have a YouTube channel and I did this, I have 5-10 different buckets. I have a day in the life. I have me doing bloopers. I have station rigs, station cribs. There's multiple different things. So as an administrator I'm going to take myself into the fire department, I'm going to say, okay, Johnny, you're going to take care of the reels. I want you just to be funny. Just do you. A great example of that is Firefighter Chronicles. He's a huge guy on YouTube. He does the comedy. Great, let him do the comedy. If you want to kind of mimic some of that stuff, perfect. But that doesn't mean that's what your channel is always about. I also say, okay, Mike, you like to do the informative stuff. You do the PIO job, right? So go ahead and give that, the weather updates, the road closures, and those kind of things. That's a different bucket. And if you give that all together on your channel, whatever you choose to be your major platform, that's where people stay engaged because they can bounce around even within your own even within your own channel.
Right. And there's something kind of for everybody at that point, right?
Now, one other thing I want to highlight with this is that there's nothing wrong with having multiple people doing different components of your social media. If you were more aiming in the recruiting area, you probably shouldn't have the 100 and dinosaur guy doing that. Okay? You probably shouldn't. You need to find a kid. One, they're going to actually be able to do it. Two, there's nothing wrong with giving them basic parameters. Three, you're not going to understand it. It's not intended for you. It's okay.
Right.
Okay? Let them do their thing. Are they going to screw up? Sure. You can always take it down. Okay? Get them to refine it. All right? Vice versa, If you're more on the public information side, like, hey, heads up, tornado's coming, probably not a good time to be having jokes and,
Right.
stunts, and vice versa. If you're trying to truly disseminate information about the organization, needs, wants, directions, just general overall purview of trying to get the community more aware about your organization. Again, it's going to have more of a serious tone. But the kicker is that you start hitting these different platforms, different channels, they're still under one association, but they start referencing each other.
Exactly.
And again, you're going to get a broader impact by just simply having 2 or 3 or 4 different avenues of communication.
Absolutely. I'm going to go down another little bunny trail because
Go.
that's kind of what we do. You talked about, putting something up then taking it down. We learned very early that if you take something down, do not delete it, because you delete it, all those people that are attached to follow that initially watched it now get removed from your channel. So make it private. Talk to them, fix it, and stuff like that. But if you have that, don't make the mistake of deleting things, because once you've deleted them, maybe the 300 people that are there that were members are now no longer members. And we learned that early on. We took a video down, and it wasn't because there was anything bad about it. It was just like, well, we didn't really get permission from the, certain people that needed it. We took it down, and all of a sudden my friends were like, hey, why'd you remove me from your channel? And we're like, what are you talking about? We had no idea.
Yeah.
What that brings me back to is know how each of those platforms actually work. Facebook has its own algorithm. YouTube has another algorithm. Instagram and TikTok, they all have their kind of own algorithms. You got to do the background. And for one person to do that, it's very, very difficult. So diversifying across your membership to help you with that is going to be key.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I kind of want to do is I want to ask James over here, because you kind of got you didn't have much to prepare for Mike coming in, okay? And you definitely hadn't much prepare for today.
I had not. Blindsided.
So
I still feel like I'm getting punked.
what is your kind of, not news story, but just, what do you need from social media?
So we'll back up 15 years when I got into the fire. Well, it's 22 years ago I got in the fire service, but 15 years ago when we as a department created a web page, we realized exactly what we're talking about here. We need to get out there and have some place where the public can get contact information, see what we're about, see what our mission is, see who our members are. At that point, just getting images on the internet so that people could see some of the stuff we were doing was important. We've evolved in 15 years tremendously in that YouTube channels and TikToks and in Reels and Snapchats and all that other stuff. It's being used day in, day out to help brand us, I guess. So that's 15 years ago. I got stuck in that rut of let's have a website. Well, then a couple years went by and we got on a Facebook page, but inevitably we fall into that's the habit and we don't evolve anymore. And when you called and said here's the opportunity to put us on a YouTube channel and be national, I was like, that's huge for the little town of Ponder and the volunteer fire service in my neck of the woods. And it's selfish. I'm trying to get members to come protect my community or get members in my own community to step up and protect and realize that they can give back to the community. So just in the mind of being a fire chief and trying to navigate all the nuances of the organization and realizing it's more than just getting on the fire truck and showing up and handling the fire. There's so much more to the organization. It was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I'm going to segue a little bit into the nuance of, we've talked a little bit about the stigma of social media, and it's controversial I'm on Facebook, been on Facebook for the last 15 years, but I don't post much because when we get in the fire service, we talk about the First Amendment, the right to have our opinion and to stand up and to speak it. When we choose to be in the public service, public safety sector, we give up a little bit of that right to go, this is my belief, because ultimately public safety is here to serve everybody in the world. It doesn't matter whether you're in Ponder, Frisco, Granbury, Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter. If somebody's in need and one of us is standing there, we're going to help. That's just who we are. And that's the foundation of the fire service. So choosing to be in that, you choose your right to go, hey, I'm steadfast Republican and I don't care what the Democrats say, or to basically use it as a personal agenda. If you're going to be in the fire service, you need to choose that you are here for the people, period. That's what we're here for. And it starts with the community, and then it goes back to taking care of your department, and this segues into leadership. But the stigma of Facebook and posting, this could segue so many different ways, really, because me personally, I'm not going to post a bunch of stuff, and I'm not going to like or dislike. I'm going to recognize people and accomplishments and whatnot. But if somebody puts something on there controversial, I'm not going to engage them. It's not the place to do it. If we want to have an educated conversation and discuss differences about how smoothbore versus fog nozzle, or search or no search, or any of those hot topics in the fire service, let's have them one-on-one. And let's be respectful about it and grow from that, because there's not a wrong or a right in a lot of what we do. There's a preferred, and at the end of the day, are we helping people? Let's get there and start there. Now I forgot where I was going. But
It happens to all of us. I do it all the time. The thought leaves my brain.
So that was where I was going. Okay, so as a fire chief, the people that I allow run our Facebook page, I have to trust them. 100%. Leadership 101. If you don't have trust, and yes, you can go back and edit a post, but we all know in this day that once you create a digital image, it's there. Somebody screenshots it, it doesn't matter what you do, it will last in infamy. So being mindful about what you post and whatnot, you still have to have some accountability in that. We have to trust and allow it to happen in order to use that as a platform. But as a fire chief, if you get burned one time, it makes it hard, because now you've lost that trust, and it's hard to okay, I'm gonna grow a little and pass it along. So one bad episode, and we all seen it. I vaguely remember a picture of a chief somewhere here in Texas on Facebook in a T-shirt, and I don't remember what it said, but when I read the T-shirt, I was like, "You're really posting a picture of yourself with a T-shirt that says that on the internet?" And it stuck in my brain. Then this has probably been 4 or 5 months ago. So it's as a leader of an organization, you want to brand it and you want to brand it right, but you got to have accountability in the system too.
Right.
And then the last thing I'll say on all this is, I've got 25 members, and I'll make fun of one of them. The youngest old guy I've ever met. He is 18 or 19. I don't even remember. He doesn't have Venmo. Yeah, you ask him to give some money at the station for food or whatever. He's like, you take cash? He doesn't do social media. He doesn't do anything on the internet. And unfortunately, technology has evolved to where 90% of what we do, we run it through that computer. So he's going to have to come along at some point. But at 19, to have that kind of an old soul, it's a little bit refreshing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Now, you would throw your phone as far as you could if you knew it didn't affect your whole entire life,
Yes,
right?
sir.
You'd want to get
Yes,
away
sir.
from it.
Now, you mentioned something about the controversy and the stigma and almost fear of having those conversations on social media. I would actually kind of flip that on its head a little bit. The controversy is actually good, because now we're having discussions. The key to that is you want to kind of guide that. If anybody becomes inappropriate, absolutely, they get blocked. But to have those discussions, smoothbore versus fog nozzle,
Yes, sir.
and that kind of stuff, leaving it up on a social media platform gets other people engaged and gets more people in that family. Like, hey, that chief is open-minded enough to talk about different things.
True.
Now, a lot of times we'll put things up and it just lays out there, and you don't get that. You're like, why isn't anybody really watching this? I thought this was good information. That's because there was really no conversation about it. So I would actually encourage you to say, no, let's talk about things, but be nice.
Be nice.
Okay. It's almost that old Roadhouse movie where, do what you need to do, but be nice. You exit in the door, but be nice. Whatever you need to do, that's really where you want to go, because you want to have those discussions. Because what we learned in Pennsylvania, isn't what they do in the middle of the United States, isn't what they do on the west side. So, just terminology alone, we call things tankers. If I call for a tanker out west, I'm going to get a whole airplane.
Yes.
I'm not going to get that, they call them tenders. So having those different discussions, air bottles versus cylinders, is another big discussion. Those are the kind of things that you want to leave on your channel. When people start going after your character, when they start going after another member, that's where you're like, hey, you're done with that, we're going to block you.
Yes.
But those controversial topics, leave them up there. Let them talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different things you can do, and I don't think there's definite wrongs, right? There's things you're definitely not going to do. You're not going to say Commissioner Smith is an idiot. Like, you can't do that, right?
Right. When you start going after people versus the ideas,
that's the wrong.
That's the wrong. 100% agree. But like I was just saying, you have to let that controversy and that discussion go. You're going to get much better engagement, and people are going to see that as transparency for that company. If you just say this is what we're putting out there, and any discussion just DM me on the side, people are like, ooh, did I get in trouble? I was just asking a question. But I would encourage you to allow those discussions to continue.
So when we have a really good community behind us, right? Our town really, our citizenry, they all support pretty well. So when we have some detractor that jumps in on Facebook and starts talking negative about the organization, we don't have to do anything. The herd takes care of it, and it's I feel bad for those people that make those mistakes of saying negative things because they just get destroyed in the comments.
But that's a major point, though. If you stay engaged and your message stays true long enough, you don't have to fight the battle anymore.
Yeah, you just walk away.
Yeah.
Your citizens will take care of it.
The community will take care of the argument for you.
I think as an organization, the best thing to do is sometimes not engage in the controversial stuff. Now, at a personal level, you as an individual on social media, engaging in respectful conversations, I can support that. And as soon as it takes a turn, that's 100%, I'm disengaging, I'm out.
Right.
And I've seen plenty of social media posts where you go volunteer versus paid. There's some perspective out there.
We get all those all the time.
What we're doing in the volunteer world with people that aren't getting a paycheck, you can't hold them 100% of the time to the same standard that you do a guy that's sitting in a station, guy or gal, sitting in a station 24 or 48 hours at a time that has the opportunity to devote all their time to training and being prepared. Because at the end of the day, the volunteer agencies, we meet once a week, which is a little bit, you got to be dedicated to the fire department. And we have a structure, but we only train twice a month for fire, 11 months out of the year. So it's 22 times at 2 hours. You get 44 hours of hands-on training for the entire fire department. So when you show up on a fire scene, your expectation of your members, number one, as a fire chief, I know who's capable of what and where I'm going to put them in the right roles in the right places. But you're not always going to have the same outcome as when I go to my career department and I'm getting off the fire truck in the first 2 to 3 minutes of a call, and I have a crew behind me that's been training day in, day out. So in seeing some of the it irks me a little bit to see some of the conversations that people have on Facebook, and that's kind of where I was going, is controversial or whatever. People have their opinions, and I'm gonna allow you to voice your opinion, but at some point, if I'm not in line with it, I'm not listening, I'm not engaging, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Sure. And the one thing that we noticed on our channel, because we do cross over from fire, police, and EMS, when I do any kind of police, immediately people are, oh, they're pigs, they're this, you're stealing. Those we don't engage with, and my audience automatically, goes after them. In the beginning, I used to get on and I text all the time, say, hey, this is what's going on. Let me know some of your background. And then they kind of vanish. And as your channel continues to build, that community will help take care of itself.
The along the lines of what we're talking about, several years ago, my local county had a ESD discussion. And unfortunately, we never really got to have that discussion because a narrative, two narratives clashed online over this. And when I say spiraled and poo was being flung, it got bad, and it went bad quick. And no one ever really pulled back the reins on it. Not like it needed to be. I mean, it really did. It needed to be pulled back hard. Very frankly, there was several people that needed to be blocked from ever being able to comment because they were killing the discussion, and they were for the ESD. And their comments were so non-productive, vitriol, and just no thought went into like before hitting send. And it's like, oh my God, you can't be anywhere for this agenda and have you be the face of this agenda. And well, frankly, it would have never cleared, it didn't clear the court, and it would have never have cleared the community because the discussion was so bad online. And I mean, these people legitimately hate each other today because of it. And there was no control ever laid into it. That'd be my one cautionary tale is if you are having a legitimate community needs discussion, I would recommend a heavier hand in being proactive in saying, you talk, this is awesome, we need to hear every side of this, but by God, you will not be mean, nasty, you will not be crude, you will not put false information out there, you will not make threats.
Yeah, and all these platforms that we've talked about, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, they do have parameters that you set up, and they have to meet those parameters, and you have the right to remove those people that violate those. I have a handful or more that I have to block because they put vile things, they put, the unique thing about social media nowadays is it's an anonymous face. People feel like they can just say whatever they want because there's no repercussions. They don't know who they are. It may be a girl, maybe a guy, maybe a bot, that's out there that's making some of these comments. So you do have to be very vigilant on keeping track of those discussions. But you'll find as you continue and people understand what your channel is about, they're going to start to respect that more and more. You are going to at one point have an issue with that. I encourage you to work through that and don't just shut it down.
Right.
Work through the problem that comes, because you will get a problem. On whatever media you're at, you're going to get that bug in the system. But all too often we're like, oh, that's it. We throw up our hands and we quit on it. And we're like, we can't do this because this is a problem. Handle the problem and move forward.
Right. Leadership 101. Face the challenge.
Yep.
Yeah, there's, speaking of that, we'll just segue into that. There was a class that you maybe taught. What was that?
Yeah, it might have been about leadership.
There you go.
When was that class?
It would have been yesterday morning.
Excellent. How was the attendance?
For 12 minutes, it was pretty good.
And then they realized, oh, I have to learn something?
No, the attendance, I think somebody told me when the class was over, there was about 45 people crammed in that little room that they gave me, so.
Yeah, no, you by far, I obviously haven't seen all the classes, but you've by far probably had the best attendance of everything that I've seen. And the one thing I want to compound is that me and you met at the Fire Chiefs Development class.
Yes, sir.
And this has been a common theme that we've talked about. And then you decided to step up to the plate, actually be a instructor this year, and submitted for it. And I'm going to argue the volunteer fire service is desperately hungry for that class. And it's not just because you were at convention, and it's not solely because you're Star Spangled Awesome. It's because
some people in there say it's for the good looks, but I'd beg to differ.
It's because we really are looking for those classes hard and heavy right now, and it's there's a pretty serious void out there, I would argue in Texas about, and again, focusing on volunteers. Career, not a problem. We can send you any class, anywhere, anytime. You've got online. We can send you in person.
There's
We
lots
can
of,
schedule. then you-
resources available, yes, sir.
But on the volunteer side, again, part of this is that networking part. And figuring out like, oh, this guy can be able to do a really good class. And there's nothing wrong with calling you up and saying, hey, I'm a county and a half away. Can you come in for a few hours, teach this class?
100%.
You know, and being able to use our resources appropriately and adequately for the full benefits.
I feel like I've missed something because I was in other classes throughout the thing.
Oh, you didn't even come to my
I was
class.
unfortunate. So could you give me just, a little synopsis of what the class was about? Leadership is a broad kind of topic, but what was your class specifically about?
Very much so a broad topic. So let's just back up a little bit. I've been in the volunteer fire service for 22 years. Came up through the ranks of Ponder Volunteer Fire Department. I'm the honor of serving as fire chief now. Leadership lessons happen day in, day out, and they're still happening day in, day out for me now. Well, early on, I was trying to understand what it meant to be an officer, a leader in the organization. And at no fault to the organization, we were in our little silo there, and I've got some experience there that I've learned many great things from that little pool. But trying to understand the concept of leadership, it's early on, just going to classes, the premise behind the class that I started yesterday is I'd go to a class and it'd be the 7 steps of leadership, or here's the 5 levels of leadership, or here's the skills that you need to have to be a good leader, or here are the top traits of a leader, or so on and so forth. And you got all this information out there, and it's just stick it all in a melting pot and just start stirring. And you're going to scoop something out, and every time you scoop something out, it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. So everybody in this room, everybody that's listening, has the opportunity to be a leader day in, day out. And I didn't know this then. I know it now. What I learned in the last 15 years is it's nothing more than influence. If you have the ability to create influence on somebody else, a direction, whatever it is, then you are a leader. Now, how do you take that concept and you apply it in an organization? As a fire chief of Ponder Volunteer Fire Department, how do I take our organization, as Chief Lasky presented yesterday afternoon, take a department and make it great? How do I do that as a leader? Well, what I started learning was I've got to continue to grow as an individual. And when I fail, when I bumble here, I step out of my comfort zone, which is the reason why I chose to put in and teach a class. And I knew in the back of my mind that leadership was something that was missing in the volunteer world, and it would be well received. So I put it out there, contacted the SFFMA, said, hey, I'm willing to do a class on leadership, stepping out of my own comfort zone. Because 25 years ago, if you told me I would ever sit in front of anybody and present something, I would have told you, nope, ain't no way.
Right.
Ain't going to happen. So, twofold. Number one, there's a need for it in the volunteer world, in the fire service in general. I'll say that across the board. And then two, selfish and personally growing as a leader and making me a better person for wherever it is that I'm going to have the impact. So I put that class together. For 12 minutes, it was awesome.
Okay.
And then people got up and started leaving for important stuff, I'm sure. But it was named Master in Leadership, but it really should be called Leadership Goulash, because that's all it is a mix of all the things that I've kind of picked up and just thrown into a presentation and semi-organized. And hopefully people can get something out of it. So
You can always hope that just somebody broke wind in the back of the room, and that's why
that's why they left.
yeah.
I may steal that leadership goulash topic.
'cause that's what it is.
I would dude, I'm going there. I'm going to go watch that.
When I first started learning a little bit about leadership, trait theory, and I'll nerd out a little bit here. Trait theory is basically the great man theory, that great leaders are just born, and you have them. You have the Abraham Lincolns, the Hal Moores, the Winston Churchills, the people that George Washington, the people that people remember because they did great things. They faced a significant challenge head on. They didn't back away from it, and they muddled through it. It's what they did. That's what made them a great leader. Mm-hmm. They muddled through it, just like the rest of us muddle through the challenges that we're faced day in, day out. And some of us are faced with bigger challenges than others. And It's the choice to step up and face it, or to one of the videos I showed yesterday is getting on that easy bus, just living life and letting the world circle around you and never getting outside of that. So
There was a class in the morning taught that unintentionally actually really complimented your class. And it was, I assure you, that was by pure chance. Bob and Karen Haggard, Bob's on our department,
I'm kind of sad I missed it now.
and his class is, and shame on me, I was digging around trying to find his company's name, but it goes in and it helps people identify their strengths and weaknesses, and it's basically a pre-test for figuring out where you're strong, where you need to improve, and what you need to work on. And the point of this is that everyone's going to have, for a lack of better words, different strengths and weaknesses.
For sure.
And then this complements and goes into your class, because you didn't go up there with the Junior Woodchuck guidebook of how to be awesome. You're saying you need to find your style.
Yeah.
And you need to actually be well-versed, well-read, but ultimately adopt the style that truly is going to work for you, while always trying to improve in these other areas.
Yes, and I was just fixing to argue with you a little bit about, you have a style, and each one of us is going to approach people differently. But each one of us, if we're going to be a true leader, needs to have an open enough mind to go, I'm going to continue to learn everything I can about being a good leader, leadership in general, in people, in building relationships. And
It's executive function is what that class.
executive function.
Okay.
Okay.
His class's title name was Unlocking Your Brain's Tools. And I know they even cut the name off of the class. But
Unlocking your
it's-
brain.
Yep, and it's just getting you to start to really consider everything that you have from a strengths and weaknesses point of view,
Right.
and
if you
run with it.
if you understand, there are other people out there, like neurodivergent people. There's people that have OCD, and there's people, I coined a term years ago, DIMS, do-it-myself people. If you understand that those people are out there as a leader, you then can adjust what you need to do and allow those people to be who they are to better serve your communities.
Yes, for sure. But to guide your influence as a leader in your organization.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, while I was sitting, and it was while I was sitting in your class, even though I wasn't there that long. You were going through your slideshow, and you had like the 50 different just pop-up leaderships.
Yeah, just
And I was sitting there thinking, like, no, I truly get what you're doing here, and it's a good message, because part of the reason people take these classes is they're like, oh, well, maybe this one's got the key and the answer. And
15 years ago, I was looking for an answer. I wanted to know what worked. Here I am 15 years later, and I'm going, there's so much information out there. At the end of the day, I have to be me.
right.
And at the very basic concept of leadership, offer and guide people to influence them. And the simplest thing I can tell anybody from my experience is it's in the relationship. Do you make people feel valued? And in the volunteer service, it's not the same as going to Grapevine, where they're signing my paycheck and they go, here's this policy manual, here's our expectations, this is your time to be here, your time to serve the community. That's pretty straightforward. If I don't do that, I don't support my family. It doesn't get more complicated than that. You go to the other side of the fence, when I get off work and I go volunteer my time, now there has to be value to me as an individual. Every person in my organization has to feel valued, that they're bringing something to the table, and that we're using them to their full potential. And if we're not using them to their full potential, are we developing them to their full potential?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, we're a stepping stone. There's a lot of, in our area, people that are coming in the fire service that are using the volunteer agencies to get their certifications, and they move on, grow up, and in the Metroplex, it's rapidly growing to where pretty much everybody's paid. And we're on the brink of that as an organization ourselves. So are we growing them to step out, or are we growing them to step in? You know, either way, it doesn't matter. We're going to grow them. That's our job as leaders in the organization. Should be our focus.
100%. It drives me nuts to hear departments or chiefs say, well, I don't want to train them so they'll leave. And it's like, no. You treat them well enough to stay, you train them well enough to leave.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
And we don't have that problem. We absolutely we train people, they leave. The crazy part is they come back. Even if they go get that job in the city, and we have a good example. We have a guy right now that he works for a mid-cities department. He been with Granbury several years, got his training, whatever. He never left Granbury, but now he's in paramedic school. So he had to leave to be closer to paramedic school. Couldn't make that daily commute, right?
Okay.
Once for 2 days, and that's not a bad commute. But he's so ready to be back to Granbury. Like he gets this break for 4th of July, and he's already making plans to be in Granbury, to run calls and be at the station, and that's where he wants to be. So even if we let the bird out of the cage and we say born free, they come back.
Yeah.
They come back. It may be next year, it may be 25 years, it may be whatever. One of the big things we do tell them is, you go get that job, we don't want to see you until you're off probation at your job.
Yeah.
Because that's your livelihood. That's way more important than us. Take care of yourself, your family. Do that. And then if you want to come back at the end of that, let us know.
Yeah, I have a long rant I could go into about this, why it's good, but I think more VFDs need to be a lot more open to the concept of making your community better, and you're sending more prepared adults off into other communities that are highly desirable. You should be a champion of awesomeness for this. And yes, is there an expenditure on it? Yeah, there is. Okay, good job. You've done good.
But that expenditure compared to what it would cost to have the same level of protection in your community, it's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
if pennies.
100%.
Right.
Especially, we still haven't done the math on it 100% yet, but it truly looks like our break-even point's around 18, 20 months.
18 to 20 months.
That's the break-even point for it, because the nature of our academies, they're coming out in 14, 16 weeks, fully certified, volunteer, okay?
No medical piece.
Yeah, no medical, and they are, active, participating, and hitting the ground running. So at that point, whether you do comparatively a compensated volunteer, and they're not, like I said, we're straight VFD, but for the litmus test, if you look at it from a pay scale of hours or their salary, the break-even point's that 18 to 20 months, and that's us, time, energy, and effort and training, the PPE cost, the benefits cost, the insurance cost, all of it. It basically pays for itself because it's still hot, new, and awesome. You're not going to lose someone that went through the fire academy, and in our process, start to finish, is when they're voted on the fire academy. It's about 6 months. Well, now they've truly hit the ground running. You're not going to lose them in the next year. You get to multiply that with our call volume, because they always have something to do. Our retention's really high because of this.
I'm going to segue just a little bit here. You keyed on something that I'd like to just throw a plug out. The SFFMA, with the SAFER grant that they got a couple of years, and they're reapplying right now to get another one, the resources that are available to VFDs.
Right.
SFMA being one with the SAFER grant, bunker gear, physicals, tuition for fire and EMS is a phenomenal resource to help us individually grow the fire service in the state of Texas, whether they stay with us or not. The other avenue is the Texas Forest Service, the state grants, 2604 money that's available that we take full advantage as best we can. And what keyed me in on it is the SAFER grant requires a 2-year commitment. So if you're going to use that for a volunteer, you need them to be committed to serving the community for 2 years. So, and that plays right into your time frame.
Now, you get a huge amount of support from TEEX with their
I apologize,
training.
Teeks, I missed you.
And the other part of this is, particularly, Mike, I'm going to mention this because, again, you're going to be bringing in a much different crowd than what we're typically talking to. So Texas is one of the rare states that spoils their volunteer fire departments comparatively. The amount of support that for chiefs that are willing to put the time, energy, and effort into getting all the paperwork, crossing the I's, dotting the T's, and I do mean it in that order.
Yep.
Putting the time, energy, and effort in, there is significant benefits to, and we're talking small organizations that truly struggle. There's opportunities for trucks and gear and PPE and training and on and on. And particularly for us in the state of Texas, and hopefully we had a huge boon just happen. And I want to thank SFFMA and the people that did all the work with the Texas legislature. They just cleared, it hasn't passed yet, but it's cleared the House and Senate, where they've just cleared $190 million in backlog on apparatus.
Wow.
So it's on
That's
the governor's
phenomenal.
desk now.
Phenomenal.
And they took the Texas Forest Service grant system from a cap of $30 million a year to $50 million a year. Now, none of this goes into effect until 2025. Okay, I think it's 5, whatever first round of it is, and I don't know which one's which. But like, I know people in other states, they don't get this.
Yeah.
And it's something that's, I'm again not reaching out enough. We don't realize that it's not that common. There's pockets in the U.S. where volunteerism's real strong, and there's pockets where it's pretty weak, and that's a whole different month-long conversation.
Yeah, we could talk for hours and hours on that, but I want to take it back to Ponder, because when I did your station cribs and station rigs, that was one of the key things that I learned from your assistant chief, is how much you guys do the footwork behind the scenes to get those kind of financing. And I didn't realize there was so much out there. As long as you do your research and you can, and you do the footwork to do that.
You have to, and we've been blessed. There's 2 tankers sitting there that were funded by one by Forest Service grant, one by AFG. We have our compressor, brand new, 2 years old, funded through AFG. We routinely get bunker gear grants. CoServe has supported us through the years. We've been blessed to have a couple VFIS grants. We just got an extractor in our station because of that. And taking advantage of those resources, I threw out the SAFER grant and whatnot, but we take advantage of every resource we can. It requires time and effort from our members, from a different component of just getting on the truck and going out there. And that's where we have to value everybody in the organization and what they can do and bring to us, and know that not everybody's going to be a firefighter.
Right.
I've had several members come through the years that they only want to do the EMS side. That's fine. Come support us on the EMS side. That's 75% of what we do. So take advantage of it. But taking advantage of the resources that are available, but also having enough forethought and a vision to see where we're going. And you got to go through our station. As a volunteer organization, you don't see many stations that have 6 bunk rooms and 2 full baths and a training room and training props upstairs or whatever.
Right.
All that was done by design by the previous fire chief, who had in a department that supported his vision of, we know we're moving to the future. We may not know when, but at some point, this Metroplex is going to start to swallow us up. And that's what we're on the verge of. And we're a small community of 2,800 in town proper and probably about 8,000 in our district, with 30,000 people slated to come in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and that was what was really impressive and why we wanted to come do your station is because across America people have been struggling and they're transitioning from 100% volunteer to stipends to full career, and we wanted to kind of see how you guys are tackling that problem, and it was awesome to talk to your assistant chief.
We're facing it head on. I'm not backing away from the challenge, and that's the challenge that I face right now is supporting the volunteer system that I have and growing them and developing them to be the future of the fire service for Western Denton County in the future.
One of the bigger challenges that I see nationwide for the VFD service is it's something that we've been stating quite a bit in the last 6-8 months is VFDs need to start thinking about this question. The difference between fundraising versus funding. And one of the bigger reasons that the classic fundraising it's not the only option anymore. And it's strictly because the fundraising has always consistently been X amount of dollars off this event. And the problem is that not only did things get more expensive, it's an exponential rise in the cost of operating. And the challenge to these communities is trying to figure out how to cover the cost and or fundraise something that 3 years ago was, today it's $1 million. 3 years ago it was $750,000. 5 years ago, it was only $500,000.
Yeah.
And it was already impossible to hit
5 years ago.
Right.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the price has doubled. And I'm telling you, this is not going to get better. It's
is not.
And this is a really, really serious, long drawn out discussion on, and I mean this, and I realize that I'm the proverbial city on a hill, okay, and it's easy for me to say to go figure out your funding. I had to have that battle too. That happened on the back end for me.
Behind the scenes, yes, sir.
And my luxury is that the men before me at least gave me a path that was established. So when I took over, okay, fine, now we're back to bushwhacking, but I at least had a path to where I was physically able to have these discussions a lot easier because it was already established.
He had a vision before you, and you was able to fall into that and then to expand on it. In Leadership 101, you got to have a direction of where you're leading people. Because if you don't, you're in a pot just mixing.
And I do. I truly think that looking out for all VFDs out going forward, and again, it doesn't matter the size of your department. And there's some huge VFDs in Texas, and there's huge VFDs outside of Texas. And you know what? There's also real small VFDs. Just one bay. Might be just a simple garage with one truck. And the fact of the matter is that money makes the world go round.
Right.
And even though our challenges fiscally that we face might be polar opposites at face value, it still boils down to this question: how do I get the funds to be able to do X, Y, and Z?
Right. And that brings us full circle to what we're talking about, using social media to inform those people.
Right.
I like the fact that, and I've even seen over the 30 years I've been doing this, is you're transitioning from doing those fairs, festivals, car shows, stuff like that to fundraise to doing funding. Once you start doing that more permanent funding, that's where people need to be involved. You get different stakeholders involved. You're not isolated to my, fair that I'm doing on the 4th of July every other year.
Right.
For that fundraising, you're now transitioning to funding.
And for us, we made that transition from fundraising to funding. And the kicker is, and I'm going to sound silly when I say this, I can obviously talk, okay? But oddly enough, I I really don't like doing PR stuff, okay? I really don't. I don't enjoy it at all, okay? And it's mostly because I'm busy and I'm over here doing this and I really need to be doing 14 other things. And it comes into, you can't stop doing that. I would almost argue it's more important that you do more PR and more community education at that point, because now that you're in the lifeboat, you got to have the oars now. You finally have some security and some safety here, but that's for today. You have to be able to move forward with this, and the PR part of this and the community education part can't stop. I would argue that at that point, it's more imperative that your officers and chiefs are actually out there on the streets, making people aware, participating in city councils, townships meetings, Kiwanis, Lions Club, big church groups, just commissioners' courts. And
Right.
God forbid if you take it to the next step, where you're actually interacting with your local and federal political critters.
Right, right.
Because the amount of money that we need for public safety, I think we've done a disservice to ourselves where we've been too humble of a steward for too long.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually generated enough public awareness until a lot of people are at that really, oh God, we're at this point, like, guys, it is fight or die right now fiscally.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I started the channel, is because I felt my community was in that boat. And we're like, okay, if I can't even get my own son-in-law to understand, what public service is about, how do I expect anybody else to?
No.
And that's kind of how the Heroes Next Door channel birthed from those kind of discussions.
The other part is supplementing it with grants. And don't think your local community, one, shouldn't know about that, but two, the benefit of supplementing with grants and letting them know, hey, because we did the legwork and we put this amount of time, energy, and effort in, we got you for your service X, Y, and Z.
X, Y, and Z. So this all kind of ties together in what's going to kind of be the crucible of the fire service is we're on this climb where what it's costing us to provide service is rapidly exceeding what we're capable of providing. And the greatest part about the fire service is we're going to take what we have and we're going to make it work, especially in the volunteer world. That's one of the things that drew me into the fire service, is the fact that here's a screwdriver, go drive that nail. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But funding, we're going to take what we have, and if it continues to be fundraising, that's the only thing we can get, then we'll take that and we'll put fuel in the trucks, and we'll find the people that are willing to serve. But where I was going is the fire service in general is on this path, funding going up, and the expectation of the community, at some point they're going to go, hey, we're not willing to spend this kind of money anymore. The funding ultimately has to come from our communities. The grant money that we get comes from tax dollars across the country. Yeah, the funds that you get from your city come from your taxes in your city. And people are going to raise the question, and that's where this all plays into transparency of the organization and what you're doing with the funds and how you're serving the community. The people can see that. But the crucible is at some point they're going to go, I'm done spending for what you're providing. And we're going to have to either level out or we're going to start to take a dive or find some kind of a compromise in the middle in what it is that we do.
Right.
But that's the challenge of leadership, is if we don't face it.
And it does,
Who knows what's gonna happen.
it sounds like we segued. We didn't. This ties directly into your
full
social
circle.
media.
Yeah.
I assure you that everything that we just talked about needs to be in your social media post. Because the more awareness you generate, the stronger you'll be. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we're getting close to needing to wrap up. And before we do that, I kind of wanted to just, how's Texas been
Oh, Texas has been absolutely phenomenal. As soon as we got off the plane, we were met with the hospitality that I didn't expect.
Oh, I thought you were going to say heat.
No, well, heat too. That was yesterday during the games.
It was warm out
We
there.
had problems with our tech, just even the computers were like, it's too hot, take me back inside. So, but the hospitality has been great. The views have been fantastic. You go from small historic communities in Granbury and the beauty of that, traveling up here to Fresco and seeing all the different farms and coming into the Metroplex. It's very cool down here in Texas as far as look to see. Very hot to stay.
Yeah, the weather in Texas sucks. It's okay to say that.
Just give it a few minutes, it'll change.
So as we wrap this up, Mike, I want to thank you very much. I've really appreciated you coming down and working with us, and I know that there was times where you were probably bashing your head against a wall where you're like, why won't they respond to a text message? I call them, I email them, they're not saying anything.
I realize that a lot of this is, it takes a lot of logistics to do what I do. Traveling across America, if you reach out to me using my email, it may take me some time to get back to you. And this whole process, I think Jesse reached out about 3 to 6 months ago to start the process. Other ones, it could take a little bit longer, that kind of stuff. But the fact that you guys felt, Heroes Next Door is a valuable tool was very humbling to me. And I thank you guys for inviting us down and having the opportunity to meet you guys and see a different part of the world that we haven't been able to show yet. I'm hoping we get invited back. People that are out there watching, if you're in Texas, you want us back, send me an email, and we'll start the logistics and start the process again.
I have a sneaky feeling we probably kicked a hornet's nest. So
You wouldn't do that.
yeah, only intentionally. So, Chief Longbrake, I appreciate your time teaching the class yesterday. I've appreciated getting to know you, and I know for a fact what you taught is what's needed right now for everyone. It's not just chiefs. It's not just assistant chiefs or captains. It's top to bottom. Everyone needs leadership training.
Everyone does, yes, sir.
We really do, and I just can't thank you enough for opening up for Mike, but also taking time to be here out of your very busy schedule and, trying to make everyone better also, even if they do leave in 12 minutes.
Somebody may not live that down.
And I do want to, I got a hold of Bob real quick. I want to mention his class because his class really segues into yours really well, Chief. And his company's Theratech Learning, and his class was Unlocking Your Brain's Tool for Effective Decision Making and Communication.
Sounds brainy.
Yep.
Very brainy.
And again, the premise of the class is kind of identify your style and then segue into your leadership class where it's saying you need to pick a style. So the idea is that maybe you actually have something to use and come up and kind of hold up to the chart and be like, okay, I fit here. Maybe I need to be looking for leadership in this category. And these are the areas I need for improvement.
And continue to grow.
Right.
Always.
You got anything else?
No, let's wrap this thing up and put a bow on it.
All right, I'll kind of do what I do then.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for watching, and listening now. Before we all end, do us a favor, hit those subscribe buttons, hit the like buttons, share these across your platforms. It's the way we do better. And always stay safe, take care of each other.
His closing's so much better than
It's
ours.
so much better. We're going to use that one.
We're going to take notes. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
This is James.
This is Mike.
We appreciate your time, energy, and effort. And if you ever have questions, concerns, comments, theories, interjections, inquisitions, propositions, demands,
Sounds brainy.
then reach out to Jesse or me. It tastes like burningcast@gmail.com. Thank you and have a good one.